Welcome to Wonders and Miracles podcast, where we celebrate miraculous moments in everyday lives. I'm Liza Lawrence. I'm glad to have you join me as we celebrate wonders and miracles together. I am here with Lyndee, and she's currently living in Maryland, and she is going to share a story that happened to her when she was a little girl. When she was 8 years old, that was a miraculous experience that saved her life. So, Lyndee, thank you so much for being on the show, and tell us what happened.
Thanks, Liza. Well, I came from a large family. There were six kids, but at the time, there were four of us that decided to go and have an adventure. My oldest brother liked to lead us on a lot of these explorations. We lived in upstate New York at the time. Lots of trees, lots of places to really explore. And so one day we decided to go a little further from our home, and there was waterfalls kind of close by. I mean, about a mile, 2 miles away. And so the four oldest of us set out on this hike, and we walked there. And I don't remember the actual walking there, but I remember when we got to the falls. We got to the area, and my oldest brother at the time, he was only 5 years older than me, so he would have been like 12, 13 years old at the time. And he pulled out a couple of ropes from his backpack, and since it had just rained, he said to keep us younger ones safe, that we should have him tied to my brother, who's just right older than me, and then my second oldest brother would be tied to me. So we went ahead and we tied it, and I thought that was silly because I was a big kid, but we did that. And after we tied, we said a prayer that we'd be safe. Then we were off on our adventure, and we're walking along, and it was pretty muddy. I mean, upstate New York, the soil was soft and it was slippery, but we're walking along, getting closer to the falls, because we were at the kind of the ledge of it, and we'd have to climb down into the falls. And these falls were more rock and less water, so we could climb into them and walk on them.
And had you been there before? So were you familiar with these?
We had been there, and I remember going there a couple times and exploring. So this was a familiar path to us for sure. And it was fun. And I didn't think anything would happen to us because nothing had ever happened. So as we're walking along and we're getting closer to where we needed to do, I suddenly felt myself being pulled. I wasn't even aware of what was happening. And then suddenly my leg caught on something. So what had happened is my older brother is actually the one who slipped and fell off the edge, and he pulled me down with him. And before we hit the bottom, there was a root sticking out, kind of like a handle on a cabinet door. It was sticking out, and somehow my leg bent and caught on that root, and it held us up. And so we were just inches from my brother hitting headfirst into these rocks of the waterfall. And my oldest brother was able to climb down. He untied us, all was well. And the rest of the hike went uneventfully. But I remember the whole way home just thinking, holy cow, what a miracle just happened. And I couldn't wait to tell the world about what had happened. And this is my 8-year-old brain, but it's definitely stuck with me even now of, what are the chances of that root sticking out exactly where I would fall? And what are the chances that the rope was the exact length that it needed to be, and it would hold me and my brother, and none of us would get hurt? And it was a pretty incredible experience. It's enough for this 8-year-old girl to see just how miraculous it was.
Well, that really is miraculous. All those little details that you just shared, that the serendipity of it all, that the rope and the root, and you were right in that position. That really is incredible. What do you think helped in that experience? I mean, I would say prayer. You guys prayed.
For sure. I think God made sure that my brother, being 12 as he was, he kind of worked as an instrument through him. My brother knew to bring the ropes. And even though it wasn't my one brother that saved me, it was the other way around. He knew that rope would be what we needed. So, and it was. I was very grateful at that moment because, nobody even got hurt. I didn't have a bruise. I didn't have anything. So
that's amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah. Did your parents know you were going? As you were telling, I was thinking of my own children going on adventures and wondering, I wonder if my children have left and
Oh my
done things
goodness.
that,
Well,
you
I
know,
just think about that and I'm like, if they were my children, I would never let them go off and play in the waterfalls. I'm like, I don't care how safe or dangerous the world is, but I assume my parents knew. I sure hope they knew. I should ask my mom. She knows that story.
right. Has she heard? I guess you came home and told her the story, or did you?
I don't remember. I don't know if we're like, we better not tell mom. I don't know. But I'll have that conversation with my mom.
Maybe when she listens to this, she'll be like,
Right?
"What?
What happened?
I
How
had
did I
no
not
idea.
know?
I had no idea." That's
Right?
so funny. That
And I
is,
just think of all the miracles that because my brother is still quite adventurous. I'm like, all the ways that many times he's been saved just because he has a very adventurous spirit. But
I think of that often with people who do have those adventurous spirits. Always, I just feel like their guardian angels are super busy. Like, okay, intervene
right?
here, save them there, and hopefully we recognize that. Hopefully in our lives we pay attention. And like you said, you recognize this even as an 8-year-old that
Hmm.
was miraculous that you didn't fall and
Absolutely.
get hurt. Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely.
I
No,
love
it was
that.
an incredible experience. To me, that was a big miracle. And I'm like, it made me think about sometimes, how many miracles that we miss. And you said in the introduction that we're currently from Maryland. And I'm like, I really want to share a Maryland story, if that's okay,
Yeah,
of
please
how
do.
we got here. We were living in a place before that I didn't want to settle in. We were in Las Vegas and I just didn't want to stay there forever. We'd been there for 5 years. I was teaching. I had a really great experience, made great friends, but I didn't want to stay there. And so we're waiting for my child who was a sophomore at the time. We're waiting for him to graduate. But we'd always toyed with him, like, what do you think about New York? What do you think about Tennessee? And he would always be like, eh. And so one time we're like, what about Maryland? And he's like, yeah, I would do that. And so immediately I started applying to teaching jobs here in Maryland. And that was probably about March, April of last year, so 2018. And nothing happened. I got interviews, but nothing would happen from the interviews. And so we were going through the summer and it was very stressful. And we're like, well, what do we do with our house? If we get a job at this point, we're going to have to move right away. And it was so stressful and overwhelming and nothing was happening. I talked to my husband and I'm like, okay, we just have to make a decision. I think even with or without a job, we have to make a decision on if we just want to make this move and hope things work out. Because
What was in Maryland? Were there things drawing you there other than just
the
another place?
right, the East. For me, I didn't care where in the East I lived. My husband's from Maryland, but
Okay.
for me, I didn't care. My son, I think he's really connected with my husband, and so he like Maryland was where family is.
Okay.
Like there's some cousins here, and so I
Okay.
think he made that connection. But he's also into sports, so he's very picky about like he had to go to a school with a good sports team. Silliness, but Maryland fit the bill for him. So,
Okay.
like I said, I did not care.
Uh-huh.
But it was discouraging and it was a very overwhelming summer. We continued to pack boxes. It was kind of that faith of, well, we'll do everything we need to in our power and we'll hope it works out. And so the boxes continued to get packed. Finally, I said, okay, we have to decide today. We've done this for months. We have to decide today. Let's just make a decision what we're going to do. And even though there's no jobs. And so we made the decision that night that let's do it. Let's just move. We'll move.
Wow.
And it was that blind faith. There were no jobs waiting for us. And so I made that decision. And the very next day, I got 2 calls. They had the interviews immediately, and I was offered the job to both of them immediately.
Wow.
So
Oh my
within
goodness.
a day of making that decision that we were going to move to Maryland, I had 2 job offers. My husband did not have a job, however. He went ahead and put in those applications. He was just waiting to see what would happen with me because he didn't want to notify his work of leaving if he was staying. He put in the application. When I came out here to officially meet my new principal and see where I'd be working and do the paperwork, he had probably about 10 different interviews that day, and he had about that many offers by the time that we left Maryland. So
Wow.
within this short span, suddenly we had, both of us had a job. We were already packed and we were ready to go. So I just look at that. It was that taking that leap of faith, and then the miracle followed. And I think sometimes we have to do that, but it was scary. It was terrifying, really.
No, that's absolutely terrifying, but so valuable. I love that point of that. And that lesson is sometimes you just have to take that step and step into it with faith and trust. And that is when miracles start to fall into place. I've seen that with so many things in my life and other people, that you just sort of act and then the Lord can follow in place. But it is terrifying. It
Yeah,
really,
I think I was supposed to get that lesson. I don't think I was going to get that offer until I just made that decision of, Lyndee, you decide what it is you want to do.
wow.
And I knew what I wanted to do, so we made that decision and we did it. And I'm very grateful for that. The miracle worked in our favor.
Yeah.
It was nice, and we're here, and we have a wonderful home, and we're happy, and our children are doing well.
That's amazing. That is a great miracle. I love that. It reminds me of, there's a quote by Goethe who says, and I'm not going to get this right, but basically the idea is once you commit to something and make that decision, even if you don't know the outcome yet, the universe or God will fall into place and help support that commitment. And I've seen that so many times in life. And I'll find that quote and read it correctly, because it's a powerful quote on that principle of acting in faith and committing to something and then watching the miracles fall
Hmm.
into place. So,
And they do. They will fall into place.
yeah. So one more question. How did your house go? Did you sell it quickly after you had gotten the job and committed to moving? How did that work out?
Well, as it would go, 2 weeks after getting our house listed, we had a buyer, and it was for a good price. And we were
Nice.
very happy with the selling price. So yeah, the home sold, and we had people help us move, and we found a place here real fast. So yeah, it all worked out.
That is awesome. Anything else you wanted to share?
I think that's just it. I think we have to have our eyes open, and we have to be willing for those miracles to bless us. I don't think that having a closed mind is, when you have a closed mind, it's hard, you miss a lot.
Uh-huh.
And I think had I had a closed mind and been waiting for things to happen for me, it wasn't going to happen for me.
Mm-hmm.
So having that open mind and just letting God work his magic in my life, that's what I needed to do. And so I do think that there are miracles surrounding us, constantly happening, if we're just open to them.
Right, right. And I think that's tricky. And well, I think it could be either way depending on what your focus is. If you're focusing on the
Mhm.
problems versus focusing on the blessings, you'll see either way.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm grateful for so many miracles. I think of my daughter's miracles, my son's miracles, and everything, that they've experienced, and just seeing the hand of the Lord in their lives. It's just seeing that in and of itself is a miracle, really.
Yes.
Just for them to have those experiences as well. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of when I was a young mom, I was praying. I say a young mom with young children, but I was praying and asking the Lord, what's the most important thing I can teach my children? Because as a mom, I feel like a lot of us carry a burden. Like, how do I help? You're just carrying the weight of your children and their decisions and their life. And so turning that over to the Lord, like, what is the most important thing? And the Spirit said to me, teach them to come to me and I will teach them. And it was really a powerful message for me, because now I get to observe the Lord in their lives, and I get to be grateful for their own journey and their miracles and not feel the burden. I still feel a burden as being a mom, but really giving them to the Lord and saying they're yours, and teaching
Yes.
them how to access that and recognize the Lord's hand in their life is really powerful.
Oh
So,
my goodness. So true. So true.
yeah. Well, thank you. I so appreciate you sharing these miracle stories. And was there anything else that you wanted to share or lessons that you've learned?
And that's it.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Liza.
Yep. Thank you so much for listening.